everyone, if you're only here for the outfits and the introductions, you are out of luck today because on this lazy Sunday I am in my tracksuit with no eyebrows on and I am not getting out. But I am going to show you a quick tutorial on how I use Procreate to make images like this. I've really enjoyed changing photos lately into digital artwork, adding backgrounds, having a bit of fun with them. It's been really cool. So one of my friends has asked me to show her how I do it. Not a professional tutorial. Oh, look at those faces. Just a little insight into how I do what I do. And I will be using this fabulous photo to work with today. So I hope you enjoy. Okay, let's get straight into it. On to Procreate we go. We're going to create a new canvas. I like to use A4 because I haven't needed to print anything bigger than A4 yet. So that's a good starting point. Insert a photo from the little spanner thing at the top left and size it to suit your canvas. This took me a minute because I had greasy fingers from my bagel this morning. Just bear with me. Once your photo is positioned how you want it, I'll be going to the top right where those two little squares are to add a new layer on top. And every time you want to add something to your picture, it's a good idea to add a new layer because that way if you make a mistake, you can easily delete it later. You can see I'm going to choose a studio pen, and if you go into the settings and put the streamline on max there, you'll find that your lines are a lot smoother and easier to work with. On the left, I've set my brush size to about 7 or 8, and then off I go. I'm going to outline the entire picture. This will take a little while. So on the top layer, all that it'll be is the black outline. Any color fill, any shading, anything else I do is going to be underneath this layer so that the black outline is nice and crisp on top. Later down the track, I'll add a little bit of a shimmer effect over the top, but everything else is going to be underneath that layer. As you go around, it's important to make sure all of the lines are joined up. It's okay if there's a little bit of overlap because you'll see in a minute I go back and erase that and make everything really neat and smooth. But if you want to color fill, you're going to need to make sure all the lines are joined up properly. And that way the color filling won't flood your canvas. If it does, just find that undo button on the left there, the little reverse arrow, and you can just fix it up. Now that that spectacular outline is finished, I turn off the photo at the back just by selecting the box next to that layer, and that way I can have a look if I've missed anything. So I believe that I thought my sunnies were a bit wonky, so I've gone back and redone them here. Well, that is much better. I see your point now past me. And here I go again, taking the photo away. I think we look pretty darn fabulous. So here's where I go in with the erase tool. I just size it down so I can get into all the little spaces and make sure those lines are really neat. Again, if they're meant to connect, so you can use color fill for the space, make sure they all join up. Otherwise, you're just going where the overlaps are and neatening them up a little bit. That's one of the more tedious parts. Good job you for sitting through it. As you can see, I'm adding my layer and moving it underneath my black outline. That way I can start filling in the color. When you select layer 2 and hit reference, then go back to that layer 3, you'll be able to color fill underneath the black, and it'll use the black lines you've made as the outlines. So that's very important. So once you select your color, oh, it's all moving too fast. Once you select your color from the top right color dot, you can put your pencil onto the circle, drag it across to where you need to be. I noticed there is an option that says continue filling with recolor, where you just tap where you want filled, but it never comes out quite as accurate. It always leaves little missing spaces. If you try it both ways, see what works for you, you'll understand what I mean. So as I go through, I'm hitting all the colors that I want, dragging them into those sections, and it's color filling away. This is where all your hard work pays off, making sure the lines were filled and joined. Oof, those glasses though. And feel free to take some creative license with the colors too. The first few photos I did, the skin tones especially came out really odd, because once I had imported the photo and blown it up, it was always a little bit shadowy. So we'd end up a little bit gray or a little bit, I couldn't quite get it to where I needed it to be. So what I did was imported a palette from a foundation chart, and that way I had a lot of different skin tones I could work with. If you want to know anything else about how to import palettes or how to do all of these things I'm showing you a little bit more professionally, there are so many tutorials on Pinterest. You can look up Procreate tips on TikTok. It'll show you how to import palettes and use different brushes and all of those. All this is a little snapshot of how I make the pictures I've been making, because I was asked by a friend to show her what I was doing. I should just add, the way that you can select a color you've used before, if you put your finger down on the picture and hold it, a little color wheel will appear. It's basically imitating its best match to the color that you're hovering over. So before, when I said the skin tone I was having trouble with, that's because over the photo I was pressing and holding the color I was trying to replicate, and it was giving me a color, but that's why it was a little bit dull. This is going to come in handy because I'm going to start doing the shading here. And to do that, I press and hold the skin color I've already selected, and then I use the color wheel to make it just a tad darker, and that way I can use it to shade. Once I've selected a color to shade with, if I move to a different point and want to come back to it, I press and hold the shaded section so that I can use that exact same color to continue filling. Don't forget to create a new layer for your shading. That's going to be in between your color filled layer and your black outline. And if it's a new independent layer, you can do what I've done and draw and then erase around it. You're not going to affect the other layers at all. And as you saw there, I also use this time to go back and forth and touch up things I've missed. That can be tricky. Remember to switch between those layers. Sometimes I've done a whole half of the photo and realized I'm on the wrong layer and had to undo it all, because otherwise it would be a nightmare later. So if you do switch between the two to do touch-ups as you go, just remember, double check which layer you're on. It's better to take a second to do that than have to undo all your hard work later. I'm happy with my shading now. I know it takes a while, but it does make a difference. So I'm adding another layer on top. This is where I'm adding the shine that I was talking about. I'm selecting the flare brush in a bright white, and I'll just tap it into the spot where I want the glint on our sunglasses. Then I'm going to go back to my layers and choose a background color. Now at the end of all of this, I wasn't super thrilled with the background, but it'll do for now and for the purpose of this tutorial. For the background, I've selected the light blue, and I'm using some of the different effect brushes to add some bubbles, some glitter, and some different glitter sort of flares to it, just for interest. I think in the end I might go back and add a convertible and some palm trees. I haven't quite decided yet. But the beauty is you can always take away the background layer later on. I can now use the rest of the picture and put us anywhere. I can put us at Disneyland. I can put us on the beach. The possibilities are endless. All you would have to do is add a new layer underneath and import a photo. And you could be anywhere you wanted in the world. Lastly, I've just put a little bit of glitter effect over our scarves. That's why you can see me adding and then erasing from the places where it's anywhere but the scarf, basically. Taking it off the glasses, off my hair, and just keeping it on the scarves. I think at this point I realized I hadn't shaded my hair, so I've gone back and fixed that up too. And then the last thing that you'll be able to see is how to save and export your image. On the top left little spanner icon, there's a share option. One thing that's cool to do is select animated GIF. You can play around with the frames, with the color palette, background or no background, and turn yourselves into a GIF. It's a really cool way to reveal your photo as well, if you like to share that with the person you've done it for. So they can see it come to life before them. You just play around with that and then hit export and either save it to your camera roll or send it directly where it's going to be. The last thing you'll see is me exporting it as a PNG to my camera roll. That's just a good quality file. I don't know why, you'll have to ask my friend Sam, but she told me to always save my files as that. JPEG, PDF, lots of different formats. You can figure out the best one for you depending on what you'll do with it. If you're going to print it out at home, PDF is a great one, or JPEG if you're going to add it to a document, and then you're done. I hope you've enjoyed this. Have some fun with Procreate and enjoy creating.